Hi guys, hope you're keeping well. Here's another tutorial for GCSE AQA RS Jewish practices, and today we are going to do death and the funeral. So this is another rite of passage. We've covered birth with the Brit Milah. We've covered coming of age, becoming an adult. That's bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah for girls in the Reform tradition. And today we're going to talk, and we've covered marriage, of course. And the final rites of passage in the syllabus is death and the funeral. Now, a funeral in most religious traditions is much about the living as the dead. Now, what does that mean? What it really means is it's an opportunity to celebrate the life of a person, and a person made by God in God's image, who had a purpose and had an impact on God's world, and to sort of say goodbye to them, really. And therefore everything done at the funeral is a kind of way of easing that transition for both the dead person and also for the ones left behind. So the first thing done in the Jewish the tradition is that the deceased's eyes must be closed. So if they died with their eyes open, which is possible, their eyes must be closed. And this is so that they can, this life that they've left is shut out and they can see the next life to come. The body will be placed on the ground in its coffin, and this is because it says in Genesis 2, man is formed from dust and returns to it. So God makes Adam from the dust of the ground, and therefore we go back and form part of that dust of the ground in our death. We're kind of recycled, really. The next thing that is done is that candles are placed at the head of the coffin, and this is because in the Torah, Proverbs, so it's actually not the Torah, it's in another part of the Tanakh, but in the scriptures, it says the soul of a man is the lamp of the Lord. The soul of the man is the lamp of the Lord, and so these lights represent the soul. And the body is then watched over until the burial. So somebody from the family will sit with the casket until the actual funeral. Now the body is prepared by a special kind of set of funeral directors in Judaism called the Holy Society, or in Hebrew it's the Hevra Kadisha. Hevra Kadisha, spelled H-E-V-R-A-H. Separate word, K-A-D-I-S-H-A-H, Hevra Kadisha. And they prepare the body for the funeral. They will wash it, dress it in a white linen shroud, and this shows we're all equal in death. And then men are buried minus one, in their talit, their prayer shawl, minus one of the zizit, the long strands that come off the corner of the shawl. And this is because, which they often hold when they're saying the Shema prayer or some of the prayers. And this is because they're dead and they no longer have to fulfill the commandments. So that part of their life is over. Okay, so let's move on now to the burial. And the burial comes in 7 stages, 6 or 7 stages. And each of those stages is designed to show the sadness at the passing of a loved one. And so the first is this strange ritual called Keria, K-E-R-I-A-H, Keria, and this is the ritual of tearing the garments. So mourners will tear their shirts and tear their clothes to show their sadness at the loss. So it's a very kind of theatrical kind of like, act. And next the casket will be carried to the grave by the family of the dead one, or the Herava, or the Holy Society, and they will stop 7 times along the way to the hole in the ground where the casket is going to be placed, 7 times, to show that it's a really difficult thing to do, to show that they're in no rush to get the body in the ground, to show that this is a real sad occasion. Again, 7. Why 7? That might be to do with 7 days of creation, a bit like how the bride circles in the Orthodox tradition, the congregation circle the huppah 7 times, and so on and so forth. Now the casket is lowered into the ground facing east, and of course that is to Jerusalem, the promised land. A prayer will be said over the casket. And then the hole is filled in. And this is done with a shovel. And each of the mourners will put in a piece of a shovel in some soil, and then they will place the shovel on the ground. They won't pass the shovel to the next person, and this is because they don't want to pass their sorrow or sadness on to the next person. So the shovel is passed via being put on the floor. And then the men will form 2 rows, which the deceased family will walk down. And as they pass the men, they will say, "May God console you." So this is like a kind of a line of consolement, a tunnel of consolement. They're being consoled as they walk down. Now the family of the deceased will go home, and there's this really lovely community moment where upon returning to the home, the first meal they should eat after the funeral should be brought to them by their neighbours as a sign of love and care for them and in their hour of need. And traditionally it's dairy based and includes eggs, because eggs represent new life, and also bread, which is symbolic of the staff of life. It's like a staple foodstuff. So bread and eggs is the first meal. So that's the burial. Now next comes the period of mourning. And again, this comes in several stages. Now the first stage, Anuit, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm terrible with pronunciation. It's spelled Aninut, Aninut, that sounds right. And this is the period between the death of the person and the burial in the ground. So this could last for a number of days. And now during this period, the bereaved person is excused from all of the commandments, even reciting the Shema. All of the commandments are suspended. And this is because they need time to process the death of their loved one. They don't even have to wear the tefillin or the talit. They don't have to wash their clothes, cut their hair. They don't have to bathe. They're not allowed to have sex or any pleasures of the flesh. This is all about processing the loss. So this period between death and burial is very important. Aninut. Now the next stage, after the burial, lasts for 7 days after the person has been buried. And this is called Shiva. S-H-I-V-A-H, and this Shiva means sitting. This is a stage where you sit and you reflect on the person and reflect on their life. You still don't have to recite the Shema, or you still can't cut your hair or bathe or go to work or do all those things. Mirrors all around the house will be covered up, okay, because this is not about you. This is not about your reflection or looking at you or thinking about you. This is about having time to think about that person. Okay. Now the next stage is called Shelloism. Shelloism. S-H-E-L-O-I-S-M. Shelloism. And that's 30 days after the grave has been closed, and it includes the first 7 as Shiva. And now some of the restrictions are lifted. You know, you're coming back to normal life, so you can bathe or have a shower to clean yourself, not for enjoyment. It's still not to enjoy yourself. It kind of doesn't work really. I think everyone enjoys a shower, but I suppose while you're having it, you're not supposed to be thinking, I'm enjoying this, or maybe not luxuriate in a bath with a bath bomb or something for hours. You just get in and wash and that's it. And you can go back to work at this stage. And then the final stage is called Alut. Alut. A-E-L-U-T. A-E-L-U-T. And again, I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, so if there's any Hebrew speakers out there, please shout at me in the comments, and I'm sure you will. And this is 11 months after Shelloism. And this only applies if you're a very close family member. So, for example, if you're a son or a daughter or a brother. And during this period, all of the prohibitions of the early morning are lifted. You go back to work, you start to pray again, wear your talit, your tefillin, all the rest of it. But you must avoid really happy events. So, for example, if you've got a marriage coming up or a wedding, you would cancel that, or you wouldn't go to a wedding, because this is a sign of celebration. And the son, if it's a son, for example, or a brother, will recite a mourner's Kaddish, a mourner's prayer at the synagogue for the next 11 months after the person's deceased, to remember them and to show them that respect. Now, Jewish law requires that the dead be remembered with a headstone. So like in a lot of Christian graves, you get headstones with a person's name on. They'll usually have a Star of David or a menorah or some symbol of Judaism. And I don't know if you remember watching the film Schindler's List, but this huge act of disrespect the Nazis had for the Jews was that section where they were getting them to knock down their headstones and pave the road to the work camp that they would be working in and often dying in. So a real sign of disrespect. It's customary not to unveil the stone for a whole year until after the person has been buried. And waiting a year symbolises that the dead person hasn't been forgotten, that they're still in your memory. And each year after the anniversary of the death, a candle will be lit on that grave to remember the person. It's lit for 24 hours. And it's customary on that day for Jews to donate tzedakah, or donate to charity. Now, Jews don't place flowers on their graves, they place stones. And I haven't really found out why that is, and maybe a simple Google search would find out. Maybe you could find that out. But I remember seeing that in Schindler's List at the end of the film. There's this lovely scene where the children who've now grown up and become adults or are related to certain people, they go to the tomb of Oskar Schindler and they put stones on his grave as a mark of respect. Now, there's a lot in there. Obviously you might need to listen to that a couple of times and also read the class notes, because there's a lot of key words there, and I really do apologise for my terrible pronunciation. Languages aren't my strong point, as you've probably realised, and you might not have picked up some of those names, but I hope I've given you some idea of the importance of the rites of passage, or the funeral and the death processions and all the things that go with a Jewish funeral. And leave me comments if you're not sure, and I'll try and answer them when I can. Okay, I hope you're keeping safe and healthy in these difficult times, and I hope to see you soon. Take care, look after yourselves.